Hello YouTubers. I haven't taken a video for a while because of college, but last time when I took a video of what to check for when purchasing a used Prelude, I got some great feedbacks. So this time I'm doing the same video but in a different car. This time I'm doing a video of what to check for and what kind of things you need to look for when purchasing a used Mk3 Jetta, especially the VR6 models. So the Mk3 Jetta came in a lot of different trims. They came with the GT, they came out with GL, GS, and the GLX. This model is the GLX model. So basically they look the same, but they have different stuff inside. Like some of them comes with the cloth seats, some of them don't have the power window or the power door lock, or some of them don't have the factory alarm. But most of all, they all can come with a 2.0 liter four-cylinder motor, except the VR6. The VR6 comes with the 2.8 liter VR6 motor, and they're known for the amount of torque they have. Another way to tell if the car is actually VR6 is check the lug bolt pattern. Only the VR6 came with the 5 lug bolts, the rest of them came with the 4 lug bolts. Not to mention the VR6 has the VR6 badge at the back, but some of them don't. I don't know, you might took it off, someone might took it off. And the VR6, the GLX model, basically they're all full option. So they all come with the leather seats, and they come with the factory alarm, or the Bose stereo system, or the power windows, and all those good stuff. Another thing that is different in terms of powertrain is the suspension. They came with a sports suspension package, which is a different suspension from the other Jetta models, and they're a lot stiffer than the other models. And because of that, you can kind of feel the car could be a little bit bouncy when you're driving around. But it really gives you that crisp handling, a really rigid handling feeling, and I kind of like it. The stocks were pretty low if you look at it, and my car is about 1.5 inch lower than stock, but even if you look at the stock ones, they're pretty low car. So this is the engine bay. It is pretty packed. The idea of the VR6 was they wanted to put a 6-cylinder motor, and then that performs well like an inline 6 motor, but simply this engine bay was too small for an inline 6 motor. So what they made was a VR6, which is a V6. Essentially it's a V6, so it's got the compact size, but the angle between the cylinders is small. They're about 15 degrees. So it's basically a size of a V6, but it works like an inline 6. So they have really great amount of torque, and that's what makes this car really fun to drive. So this is the engine bay. You got the VR6, and you got the intake right here, and you got the radiator right here. That's a coolant reservoir. You got the battery right here, and then you got transmission down there, exhaust on the back, and then the headers at the back right there, and then the intake manifold goes through like that, and then engine air goes in. So things to check for mechanically, these VR6 motors were really built to last. They're pretty much bulletproof motor. They don't really break. They're not really known for, you drive around and then like piston brake snaps, or none of those. The transmission's pretty solid too. Oh, by the way, most of them came with the 5-speed manual transmission, but some of them did come with the 4-speed automatics. So things to check for: this is a mass airflow sensor. These things go bad every once in a while, and they're pretty expensive to replace. So if you notice, I have 2 air injector. I have 2 air intake right here. I have the bigger one right here, and then I have the small one right here. This small one is called the secondary air injection, and it was just made to pass emission. So the idea was, when they first made this and then imported to United States, it didn't pass the emission. So rather than reducing the power or something, what they decided to do was simply just put clean air with the exhaust gas. So there's a secondary air pump, which is right about there. It's kind of hard to see, but it's about there. and it's an air pump about this big, and then it just sucks air in, and then it just puts clean air through the exhaust gas, so it can pass the emission. And those things go bad when the car has some miles over 150,000 miles, and when they go bad, your car will simply just fail the emission. So, and it's a pretty pricey job to work on, and the pump itself is pretty costly, and the labor on it is also really expensive, because you have to take off the intake, and then you have to take off the there's a I forgot what it is. There's like a cylinder inside next to it that you need to take off. So make sure that's working okay. The way to check it is just see if the car have any check engine lights, or if the car, that needs, if your car that you're trying to buy needs to pass emission, that's something you need to check for before you purchase them. Another thing to mention is the catalytic converter. They go bad about 150,000 miles, about the same time as your secondary air pump goes out. So those things are the kind of things that you need to check for if you're thinking about owning the car for a long time and needs to pass the emission. Another thing to check for is that the coil package right here. The coil package goes bad every once in a while as well, and these are really they're really expensive to replace if you let the mechanic do the job. The part's expensive, and it's also a pretty difficult thing to change. So make sure that's all right, and the way to check if that's okay is just simply, if it's bad, the car's not going to run well, and make sure ask the owner when it was last replaced. So if it's been never replaced, it might go bad sometime soon. So those are basically the things that you need to check for in terms of engine. And there's one more thing that I want you guys to check before you buy the car. So underneath the car, there is the oil pan, which is right about there. That's the oil pan. And you can see this thing is actually sitting damn low. It's actually the lowest thing that could touch the ground. And since the car is pretty low, and the oil pan is the lowest thing that's sitting on the engine, what happens is when you're going over a bump, or when you're going down or something, you could scrape those, and you could pretty heavily damage the oil pan, and it could make a hole in there, which is a very no-no. You don't want to buy that. Or it could make a leak, like the oil can leak through the oil pan gasket. So make sure, just look down and then see if there are a lot of heavily oil leaks. That means the oil pan's been damaged and it's leaking, and that's also something that you might want to avoid of. Basically that's about it in terms of engine. And the inside, so the inside, this is the stock interior. One thing you might want to check is that the heater core on these cars go bad every once in a while when the car have high miles. That's also a pretty costly job, because you have to take off just a lot of things, and the heater core itself is pretty costly as well. The way to check is just to see if the heater's working. If the heater's working, good for you. And then if the car has high miles, ask the owner when was the heater core replaced. Most of the time, the heater core has been replaced on high mile cars. Another thing to check in the interior is the window. The regulator on these windows are known for going bad every once in a while. So make sure the windows roll down fine. The GLX come with the power window on all of the four wheels, and all of the four windows. And that's the hella annoying factory alarm system. So if you press it hard, it should auto roll down. The back windows are right here. It's auto for the down, but it is not auto when it's going up. So make sure they roll up fine. So mine seems to be both working. The fronts are auto on the way up as well. And then this is the moonroof to it. There should be a cap like this. That's my tripod. there are 3 buttons. This is close, this is open, and this is to just notch it up this much. And then I cannot open it because of the tripod, but yeah. So mine opens and closes. I checked that. Make sure you check that if that's working. And so now I started the car, and make sure it has any checked engine lights, which should be right over there. That's a brake light, that's the airbag light. Mine just comes off and goes off every once in a while. The ABS light is over here. All the GLX model comes with the ABS system. The sensors on these cars are kind of funky. Like a lot of the cars, ABS just like comes on and goes off, or the same as the airbag, just comes off and goes off. And most of the time those are the sensor malfunctioning, and something you shouldn't be worried about that much. Okay, so now we're gonna go for a little drive. Let me take this. So mine is 5-speed manual, and the lights are over here. Make sure the fog light's working. You just pull it and then the fog lights work. Make sure the interior lights work, all of them. And if you come with the Bose stereo system, make sure you have the key, because if you drain the battery, it's gonna ask you for the new code, and if you don't have it, it means you can't really use it anymore, and that would suck. The factory speakers, the factory Bose speakers on these cars are pretty nice. They have decent amount of bass. You can you can adjust the bass and travel through these 2 notches right here. And the 2 speakers on the front, 2 tweezers on the top, and 2 bass on the back with the 2 tweezers on the back. And they have an amplifier at the back as well. And if your car did come with the did come with the disc changer, it was an option back then. Make sure that is inside the trunk as well. Mine doesn't have that. Make sure the heater works, and if you're living in a hot area, make sure the AC works and it doesn't make any retarded noises. Just the things to check for when you're driving around. The power steering is very light on these cars. So that's that. And make sure the car drives straight. You don't want to buy a car that doesn't drive straight. That's a pain in the ass. Alignment could be off if the car's a little bit old, but it shouldn't do anything like, to alter the tire wear. You don't want a car that doesn't have an even tire wear on it. The reverse is left, down, up. That's a reverse. Some people do down, left, up, but that doesn't really work all the time. The gear throw is really, really long if you have the stock one. People, I gotta get going. Gonna go. Oh, Jesus. So if you have, if you have the VR6 inside, you should feel plenty amount of torque. You shouldn't feel, like the car seems like it's underpowered or anything like that, or the car shouldn't run weird. It should run really smooth, and you should have plenty of torque. Make sure you have that. The red line is 65 on these cars, but it's not really a high revving car, so the car kind of feels like it kind of starts to lose power after about 55. It's a pretty low RPM torque car. The VR6 have their distinctive sound to it, so make sure you enjoy that as well. If you have the stock everything, the car should be really quiet. Some things to check for, some electronics, the power side mirrors, they're over here on the left side, right, left. Make sure that works. The way you turn on the audio is just turn the notch to the right and then it starts, and this is how you turn it off. And the door lock is kind of funky. This is locking it, and pushing it up is opening it. And make sure the cruise control works, which is right over here. Make sure the turn signals, left, right, and high beam is just pulling it. And make sure the wipers work. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's not really a big deal, but the windshield washer, well, that goes bad, and the way it goes bad is that the line that washer comes through, that is actually made out of plastic, not rubber. Most of the car they're made out of plastic because you can so you can bend things and stuff like that. But these, they're made out with plastic, so if it's plastic and if you curve it, they snap. So a lot of them are snapped, and it's a pretty easy fix. All you have to do is just maybe like glue it back on, or just get a new cable, or just kind of like tape around to it, and you should be okay. Make sure the clutch is okay. Make sure the gear doesn't grind. The gearbox is pretty solid on these cars. They should be pretty smooth. And the emergency light is over here. Yeah, so but that's about it. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have, more opinions, more ideas about the VR6. You might find some of my information's wrong, or you might find additional information you can add to it. Make sure to leave comments on it. If you have any questions, please do ask me. I will answer for you if I know the answer to it. And yeah, I really love these cars. These are, pretty affordable. It's a Volkswagen, so when they're old, the price kind of go down. But it's a really bang for the buck sports car, I feel like, because it really has a lot of torque, and it's really fun to drive. Not to mention, it actually handles nice, and it comes with the really nice leather seats, and it's also 4-door. So the car really has its target market. People who knows VR6, they know how fast it is, and it's a really car that you will love it. I mean, I love Hondas, but first time trying Volkswagens, I really love this car. So yeah, feel free to leave comments, and thanks for watching. And now to the acceleration part of the video.
Enough to make a video.